You know that specific kind of panic? You're sitting in the Pearson VUE testing center, and those noise-canceling headphones are just like squeezing your head.
Mm-hmm.
The NMLS exam clock is ticking down, and you're feeling pretty decent. You've memorized the laws, you've got your DTI ratios down cold, you're cruising, and then you hit a section on loss mitigation.
The dreaded loss-mit swamp. That is where a lot of passing scores go to die.
It is, and suddenly the questions aren't just definitions. They're not asking what does repay stand for. No, they're throwing these messy human scenarios at you.
Right.
Bob lost his job, but now he has a new one, but he's 3 months behind, and the answers all look terrifyingly similar.
Yep.
Forbearance, repayment plan, modification, they all sound like help.
But only one fits the key. And that is the classic exam panic moment. It's where the rubber meets the road. Because it's not just about knowing what the words mean. It's about diagnosis. It's about knowing exactly when to pull which lever.
And that is exactly our mission today. We are stepping into the ring to referee the battle between two heavyweights that trip up test takers constantly. Forbearance versus repayment plans.
It's a crucial distinction. And they are frequently paired together on the exam specifically to test if you're paying attention to the details of the borrower's hardship.
Yeah.
So we're going to untangle them.
Yeah.
By the time we're done, you won't just know the definitions. You'll have a mental framework so you never confuse temporary relief with structured recovery again.
I really like that framing. Relief versus recovery.
Yeah.
That already helps. Now, before we get into the weeds, just a quick note for everybody listening.
Yeah.
If you are enjoying these NMLS Safe Study deep dives, please subscribe, like, and comment. You can tell us which topic you want us to cover next, or even which state you are tuned in from. This really supports and helps grow the channel, and it allows us to reach more learners. Seriously, dropping a comment about your state helps us know where the community is.
Absolutely. It helps us tailor the content. So here's our roadmap for this. We're going to start with the fundamental definitions. The elevator pitch difference. Okay. Then we'll look at the exam traps for forbearance, because there's a massive one. Then a repayment plans, consumer protection, and finally we'll tackle dual tracking.
Dual tracking always sounds like spycraft to me. I know it's much more bureaucratic and way more dangerous for the borrower.
It is.
Okay, let's start at the top, the core distinction. If I have 10 seconds, elevator pitch, what's the difference between forbearance and a repayment plan?
The most important exam principle, if you take nothing else away, take this, is the timeline. Forbearance equals temporary relief. Repayment plans equals structured recovery.
Okay, relief and recovery. But on a test, those can feel synonymous. How do we distinguish the trigger?
You have to look at the hardship variable. Look at the timeline of the problem. Forbearance is the tool you reach for when the hardship is happening right now.
I'm in the middle of the storm.
The storm is raging. The borrower has no income today. They can't make a payment. Whereas repayment plans, that's for when the hardship is over. The storm is past, income is stabilized, and now we just, we need to clean up the mess.
Okay, let me try an analogy here. Forbearance is like hitting the pause button on a movie because the pizza guy's at the door. You can't watch right now. You have to stop.
Right. The flow of payments stops because the borrower is occupied with a crisis.
And the repayment plan is when you unpause. You're back in your seat, but maybe the movie kept playing for a minute, so now you have to run it at like 1.5 speed to catch up.
That is actually a surprisingly good analogy.
Yeah.
Yes. Forbearance pauses the immediate pressure. Repayment plans are the mechanics of cashing up once you're able to again.
Okay, let's drill down into forbearance specifically. I feel like this word gets thrown around a lot, especially over the last few years. What is the textbook definition we need for this safe exam?
Factually, it's a temporary agreement between the borrower and the servicer. And the agreement is to either reduce or completely suspend mortgage payments for a defined period.
Defined period feels like the heavy lifter in that sentence.
It is. It is never open-ended. And on the exam, they'll give you use cases. You'll see things like job loss, a sudden illness, natural disaster, some other short-term income disruption.
So things that are largely out of the borrower's control, usually.
Usually, yeah. The key phrase regulators use is breathing room. It's about early intervention. Regulators want servicers to give the borrower time, not immediately threaten legal action.
But here's where I think the trap lies. If I'm a borrower and I hear payment suspended, I hear free money. If I'm not paying, does that money just go away?
And that is the major exam trap. Emphatically, no. Forbearance is not forgiveness. That is the #1 misconception for real-life borrowers and for test takers.
I can just see someone clicking true on a question that says forbearance forgives the debt and failing right there.
It happens all the time. The source material is very clear. Missed or reduced payments must eventually be addressed. The debt doesn't vanish. It's deferred, not deleted.
So if I miss 6 months of payments at $2,000 a month, I have a $12,000 pile of debt waiting for me when it's over.
Exactly. And this brings us right to consumer protection.
Yeah.
Because that is a massive, scary surprise for a borrower if they aren't expecting it.
Right. Imagine thinking you were getting help, only to find out you owe a lump sum of 12 grand.
Precisely. Which is why there's a strict requirement for clear communication. The borrower has to know how long it lasts, and crucially, they have to be told upfront what happens when it ends.
So if an exam answer suggests something like a vague or open-ended forbearance, like, don't worry, pay when you can.
That's the wrong answer. Pay when you can is not a valid servicing strategy. It's a compliance red flag.
Got it. Okay, so let's move the timeline forward. Storm passes, job is back. Now we have that $12,000 pile of debt. This is where the repayment plan comes in.
Right. The definition of a repayment plan is a tool designed to cure an existing delinquency. The word cure is specific. It means bringing the loan back to a current status.
So walk me through the math. How does it work for the borrower's wallet? They probably don't have a lot of extra cash.
It's simple addition, but it can be a heavy burden. The borrower resumes their regular monthly payment. So say it's $1,000, they pay that.
Okay.
PLUS, they pay an additional amount to chip away at the arrears, that past due amount.
So if I owe, say, $3,000 in back pay, my plan might be my regular $1,000 plus an extra $250 a month for a year until that's gone.
That's exactly how it works. You're essentially paying 1.25 times your normal rate.
And who is this for, really? Because asking someone who is just unemployed to pay more than they used to seems a little aggressive.
It's a tight needle to thread. This is for the borrower whose income is fully restored. They're stable. But, and this is key, they don't have a giant lump sum of cash to just write a check for what they missed.
Which is most people. If you lost your job, you probably burned through your savings.
Right. And despite that pressure it puts on the borrower, regulators love repayment plans.
Why is that? Just because the bank gets its money?
Partially. But it's more about the structure. It
Yeah.
demonstrates responsible servicing. It promotes recovery. And it's structured, documented, and finite. It has a start date and an end date. It's clean.
Clean is good for auditors. Okay, so let's zoom out. We've talked about what makes them different, but the source material highlights a common thread. What do they share?
They do. And this is vital. Neither forbearance nor repayment plans permanently change the loan terms.
The interest rate's the same, maturity date's the same. It's just a temporary shuffle of cash flow.
Correct. They are temporary adjustments. And this stands in stark contrast to a loan modification.
Ah, the loan mod. That's the heavy hitter.
It is. A loan mod is a permanent alteration of the promissory note. You're changing the interest rate, extending the term from 30 years to 40. It's a new deal.
So, on the exam, if a question asks about a permanent change to the note, and I see forbearance or repayment plan as an option.
You can cross those out immediately. They're likely distractors. Those are temporary fixes. Modifications are permanent.
That's a great tip. Okay, moving on. High-yield concepts. This sounds like the stuff that gets you the high score. Let's talk about sequencing.
Sequencing is about the order of operations. Regulators have this concept called the least intrusive effective solution.
Sounds like medical triage.
It's similar logic. You don't perform open-heart surgery if a Band-Aid will do. Regulators expect servicers to try the temporary fix, or the cure, before jumping to the huge changes like a loan mod or, worst-case, foreclosure.
So a proportional response. Don't use a sledgehammer to crack a nut.
Exactly. And the exam rewards answers that reflect that. If the scenario says Bob broke his leg and will be back to work in 60 days, and an answer is begin foreclosure proceedings, that's just wrong.
Way too aggressive.
It violates those sequencing principles.
And speaking of aggression, let's talk about dual tracking. This is the thing regulators really hate.
They despise it. It happens when a servicer is working with a borrower on a loss-mit plan while simultaneously pursuing foreclosure.
So on one phone line, a rep is saying, hey, thanks for setting up this repayment plan. You're doing great. And at the same time, the servicer's lawyer is filing paperwork at the courthouse to take the house.
That is exactly it. It's the left-hand versus right-hand problem, and it is strictly prohibited. Servicers cannot pursue foreclosure while a borrower is actively complying with a loss mitigation plan.
Actively complying feels like the key phrase there.
Yes. If the borrower is acting in good faith, the foreclosure train has to stop. Here's the exam tip. Any answer that allows foreclosure to proceed during good faith participation is incorrect.
You can't shake their hand with one hand and stab them in the back with the other.
Vivid, but accurate. It's about fairness.
Okay, we've covered a ton. Let's bring it all together. Scenario logic.
Yeah.
Walk me through how to answer the actual test question. What's my decision matrix?
Think of it as a three-step checklist. Step 1. Look at the hardship. Is it temporary and forward-looking? Is the problem happening now?
Okay. Step 1. Is the patient currently bleeding? If yes.
If yes, the answer is forbearance. You need to stop the bleeding immediately.
Got it. What if the paragraph says they were sick, but now they're better?
Then you move to step 2. Has the hardship passed? Is the borrower back to work, but arrears remain? If yes, the answer is repayment plan.
Step 2. Bleeding stopped, but there's a big mess to clean up. Repayment plan.
Correct. And finally, step 3. Is long-term affordability just impossible with these tools? Can they simply not afford the payments anymore?
So the mess is too big for a mop. We need to rebuild the house.
Exactly. Only then do you start looking at a loan modification or other foreclosure alternatives.
That's a fantastic logic chain. 1, bleeding now if you're at forbearance. 2, recovered but behind face repayment plan. 3, can't afford the terms of modification.
It simplifies all the noise. The exam tries to distract you with emotional details, but if you stick to the timeline of the hardship, the answer usually reveals itself.
So, to synthesize this whole deep dive, what's the big takeaway?
It comes down to 3 things: suitability, fairness, and consumer protection. Whether you're pausing payments with forbearance or setting up a catch-up plan, the goal is the same. Keep the borrower in the home without confusing them.
And making sure the borrower understands the tool is key. Because if they don't get that those payments are stacking up, they're just going to default again the moment forbearance ends.
Precisely. Communication is just as important as the math. A confused borrower is a defaulting borrower.
Now, before we wrap, you always leave us with a final thought. Something to chew on. What have you got?
Well, we talked about dual tracking and the protection it offers, but here's something to mull over. Just how fragile these agreements can be. We say it's prohibited while a borrower is complying, but consider the complexity of good faith. If a borrower is on a 6-month repayment plan and they miss one payment, does that protection just vanish instantly?
Wow.
Does the foreclosure machine turn right back on the very next day?
That's terrifying. One flat tire, one unexpected medical bill, and you miss that catch-up payment.
And in practice, yes, these agreements can be incredibly fragile. A single flip-up can sometimes void the protection, throwing the borrowers right back into the fire. It's something to consider how thin that line is between recovery and default.
Oof. That is a heavy thought. It really highlights why it's so important for MLOs and servicers to explain the stakes. You can't just set it and forget it.
Exactly. The details matter.
Well, that is all the time we have. Hopefully, the difference between forbearance and repayment plans is now crystal clear.
It should be.
Thanks for diving in with us. And again, if you are enjoying these NMLS Safe Study deep dives, please subscribe, like, and comment. Tell us which topic you want us to cover next or which state you're tuned in from. It really does support and help grow the channel, and we do read the comments to pick our next topics.
We do. Good luck with your studying. Keep those definitions straight, and we'll see you on the next one.
Catch you later.